BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Andrew Petrie, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views, and analysis you need on Monday, the 18th of August. It was League Cup weekend, and the round of 16 certainly lived up to the billing.
It's the home fans who are celebrating a really tidy finish from the captain, Brad Lyons, slamming in from a nicely worked free kick to give Kilmarnock a 2-1 lead on 69 minutes.
It was heartbreak again for Dundee United as Kilmarnock triumphed in the Ayrshire sunshine. And over in West Lothian, Hibs' record signing got off the mark.
Martin Boyle swings it in and swinging! Hibs have the big breakthrough, and it's Thibaut Collige, and nobody deserves to score more than him. He's been absolutely outstanding.
Their reward is a trip to Ibrox in the quarter-finals. Rangers themselves were made to sweat in their tie against Alloa Athletic.
Curls that in towards, goes a good ball, it's off the bar, it's in! Alloa have got a one back as Scott Taggart from a couple of yards out.
We'll have all the big talking points from Saturday's matches as well.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Joining me to discuss them is former Celtic and Kilmarnock striker Cillian Sheridan and former Rangers and Hibs midfielder Kevin Thomson. Before we get started, Cillian, how was Oasis? I've got to ask, what is Liam Gallagher like in person?
I actually don't know what he's like in person because I made the whole thing up. I had the tickets and I thought, right, let's have a bit of fun with this. So came up with a pretty plausible story that worked.
I mean, if I can see anyone swaggering up to Liam Gallagher and just straight up asking for tickets, I think it probably would be you as well.
I'll take that as a compliment. I'm not sure if I actually have the bravery to actually do something like that, but I'll take it that you think I do.
Fantastic. Right, we'll get into the football then, because any non-Oasis fans have probably already tuned out. We'll start with Kilmarnock and Dundee United, where the hosts at Rugby Park went through thanks to Brad Lyons' winner. Cillian, Kilmarnock are undefeated in 90-minute matches so far this season. Have they been the surprise package early on?
I think so, yeah. They probably went a bit under the radar over the summer. I think it was probably a big loss to them losing Derek McInnes, and maybe their expectations weren't as high. They probably felt like it was a big blow to them. Stuart Kelwell's come in, done really well so far, great start to the season, and it's probably just helped them that so much was going on with so many other teams that kind of no one really would. Kilmarnock just kind of slipped under the radar. No pressure, no expectations, and they've just had a really solid start.
Yeah, they've been terrific, and one player who's been terrific for them has been youngster Ben Brannan. He got a fantastic assist, a sumptuous long-range pass to set up the opener. Kevin, how talented is this kid, and how impressed have you been by him?
Yeah, I think he's been terrific. I think when you're a young player, you're obviously craving that opportunity, and when you get it to make a statement like the lad's made has been brilliant. Obviously, I've seen his goal last week against the Hibs, as you do when young players break through. Obviously, I know Burkie really well. You're always asking like if these kids are just flashing the pan or if they've got a bit about them to kind of maintain it. And I have to say he's been a breath of fresh air, and fair play to Stuart Kettlewell. I think he was under a wee bit of pressure. There was a wee bit of an unrest, I suppose, with losing Derek, and obviously Stuart getting appointed the manager. But I have to say he started the season off really well. I think it's easy when you've got Lennon Miller at your disposal that he's probably had a lot of plaudits that he's played young players, but he's carried that on with Kelly, and fair play to him. I thought they would be ones that might struggle, but I'm delighted that they're obviously proving me wrong.
They certainly are. Cillian, you'll have played in similar temperatures to the game today. I think it was 34 degrees pitch side. Just how big an effect does that have on the game?
Yeah, it depends on what team is on top, really. What team's controlling the ball, making the other team work a bit more. It's a bit different here compared to like playing over in Cyprus. Teams already have adapted their game to the weather, whereas here you're still trying to play the same game in like 25, 26, 27 degree heat, whereas abroad the game's already adapted to be slower, and I think it just kind of hits players a lot. We had it there in our game on Saturday. A lot of the guys were everyone was kind of saying how hot it was. But I mean, at least there's water breaks now and stuff like that, so it's not as bad as what it used to be. I think, but like I said, a big part of it is it puts more of an onus on you to keep the ball, and just you keep the ball, make the other team work, tire them out, and then kind of you can enjoy if you can enjoy the sun, playing football in the sun, you should be. But that's probably the main takeaway from it.
I was going to say, it didn't affect you too much on Saturday. Is that 3 goals in 6 games now for Brecon this season?
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, we'll move on quickly. We won't dwell on that. Kevin, as for Dundee United, they're already depleted by injuries. It maybe looked like a game too far for them. How badly could their European exploits, which of course unfortunately were unsuccessful, how badly could that affect them?
Listen, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Everybody strives to get there. You have a good season. You finish in Europe. You probably start that wee bit earlier than everybody else because the qualifiers come around that wee bit quicker. So you're already on course for a long season, and then you fall maybe at the final hurdle. It stretches the squad. Obviously, the bigger teams have got bigger budgets, so they can obviously spread their budget around that a wee bit more to have a wee bit more depth. It's a bit harder for obviously people that don't quite get into Europe every year. But I have to say, Jim Goodwin has done a brilliant job, and it was probably one of the games that, even though he'll not be happy me saying it was probably a 50-50 game. It could have probably went either way. Unfortunately for Dundee United, it's not went their way. But at the same time, I think they've competed really well in Europe. They've made a solid start. And I actually thought they were another one that, because they had a good season last year with these European exploits, that they might suffer. But I think they'll be okay, because I think Jim Goodwin's long enough in the tooth to know what he's doing.
Well, a team that are playing in Europe and certainly aren't suffering is Hibernian. They went over to the Amman Vale and comfortably saw off Livingston with a 2-0 win. Cillian, exactly the kind of performance David Gray was looking for, but it's the first time he's really rotated his squad. Salinger, Megwa, Mana, Campbell and Clige all coming in. That rotation's paid off, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Probably gives him a bit of confidence now, knowing that he can dip in and out from the starting 11 and go more into the bench and more into the use of squad depth. When I think they've got a pretty good chance of getting to the groups, so I think it will become a factor for them. So probably gives them that confidence in the rest of the team that guys can come in, step up, and kind of like seamlessly come in and out. Building a really strong squad there. I think they'll be in. I think they have a good chance in the League Cup. I think they'll have quite a good cup run, kind of like with all the cup competitions together. So he's definitely going to need to use, I think, every player at his disposal.
And one player that he did use was Thibaut Clige, their new record signing. Cillian, as a striker, how much would that price tag have kind of hung over him, and will it be a big relief to get that first goal?
Yeah, I can't really relate too much to having the price tag over my head, but going in as a striker, you just want to score as soon as you can. And I always find, like, even like just yourself within the dressing room, it kind of calms you down and it makes you a bit more relaxed, where you're kind of, maybe some other guys think differently, but I always felt like I need to go in, score, and then kind of show, all right, like he's worthy to be here, like he's a good player kind of thing. And you're just kind of, you're accepted into the dressing room and the team instantly once you do that. And then the more relaxed and you are playing, obviously everything, your all-round game is going to improve as well. So it'll be massive for him, I think.
I'm sure one player who's been quickly accepted is Josh Mulligan. He's looked a really good signing so far for Hibs. Kevin, were you a little surprised that Rangers maybe didn't make more of an effort to try and tempt him over from Dundee?
I think they did make an effort, to be fair, Andrew. I think the previous recruitment team before the takeover had obviously gone through. I think they were, when you think of Lyle Cameron, you think of Conor Barron, obviously season before. I think that was the kind of homegrown players were high up on their list, really. But new people come in, different ideas. That's the way football works, unfortunately. But I have to say, a Rolls Royce of a player, and for Rangers' disappointment, has been the Hibe's gain, really. And I think he'll go on and he'll make Hibs a few quid, and hopefully that'll be in a few years' time when he contributes massively to the team, which he's already doing. I think Bowie's in the exact same mode. I think they've, not just because Dave's my mate, but the club have put their money where their mouth is when they've backed him. He's been well backed in the respect of having a really poor start to the season, which they managed to turn around. So it was shown that a bit of patience and backing your manager that you believe in has become fruitful for them, and now you're talking about spending 1.2 million on a striker that's not quite been in the team yet, and or £600,000 on a midfielder. So I don't think will ever feel hard done by the backing that he's getting. But when you do well, that's the least you can hope for as a club. And I think he's what Cillian just said, that he's putting a squad together that's you can stretch it, you can change it, you can. I think they will want to be really competitive in the cups, and obviously they'll have one eye on trying to get as close to the Old Firm as they possibly can. That's for sure.
Well, let's take a look at Saturday's matches as well. Rangers overcame League One Alloa, but it wasn't a vintage performance again from the Ibrox side. Kevin, what's going wrong at Rangers at the moment? I know it's a weird question considering they won 4-2 in the end, but there still seems to be a bit of unrest.
Yeah, listen, a bit huff and puff, I think, and I think everybody will know when you represent Rangers or Celtic that you're only really as good as your last kick of the ball. It's just the way it is. You have to accept it. And unfortunately, when you represent these clubs, you can win and you can go on good runs, and probably individually you can be doing quite well. But the flack still comes if it's not quite at its flamboyant best, and there's no doubt that it's not been at that. I've done the European games, obviously, for the club, and I think some of the European performances have been very good. But obviously, a slow start domestically. A game that probably, if they'd won 5-0, it was one of the games that people would expect them to win 5-0. You huff and puff a wee bit, so then you open yourself for a bit of criticism. You say we're quite happy to be in the next round. Well, you should be in the next round. To me, it was probably one of these scenarios that Russell, no matter what he said and no matter what the players done, they probably couldn't have come out without any sort of criticism, really. So I think they're in the hat. A tough, obviously, tie against the Hibs. So I think they certainly need to get a move on. I think that's harsh, and I think that's a wee bit unfair. But I certainly do think they have to get a wee bit more momentum to try and get the fans on side, because there's certainly a wee bit of animosity, let's say, would probably be the right word. And I think if they can get rid of that and build some sort of momentum and go on a good run, then I've got no doubt the fans will start to back the team.
Well, over in Gorgie, Derek McInnes had made that fast start at Hearts. That was until Saturday. They lost out to St Mirren on penalties. A really poor performance from Hearts, especially in the first half. Cillian, were you surprised at that level of performance?
Surprised at the level. Probably not a typical Derek McInnes team performance. Definitely would have been something that they really fancied. I think even hearing the way Derek McInnes was talking before the game about players coming to win trophies there and win silverware. So I think that kind of was planted in the players' heads. Probably when he came in straight away, that he's come in to win as well. And definitely he would have seen that as a chance. So that'll be a big disappointment for them. I fancy them his teams usually bounce back from performances like that. He's a good manager, motivator. He'll get them up again, I think, for their next game. But then again, fair play to St Mirren. It's not like as big of a disappointment it is for Hearts. You kind of can't forget how good and hard to play against and hard to beat St Mirren are. It's not like they've went and got knocked out to a lower league team or a team lower down the table. They've been put out by a good hard to beat St Mirren team.
Maybe not too much of a shock then. If there was going to be a shock, I think some people had pinpointed Morton against Aberdeen. It didn't turn out that way at all. Comfortable win for the Dons, who never really got out of first gear, but they didn't really need to. Kevin, did they need a comfortable win like that to get themselves off the mark this season?
Yeah, it's funny how us kind of outsiders always see teams having a slow start and desperate for a cut upset. Obviously, I know Dougie really well. I know what type of team he puts on the pitch, so I've got no doubt he probably had one eye on that as well. You'd probably start fast, make it difficult, but as you mentioned, the probably class of the depth that Aberdeen have got and some of the money they've invested in the squad kind of showed. I know Morton will have aspirations. Dougie will be desperate to try and squeeze into that playoff spot, and I know first and foremost they'll probably always want to stay away from the bottom spots, but they'll always have that ambition to try and squeeze in the top four. For Aberdeen, they've kind of made a huff and puff start, I suppose, not without putting a scenario in place. I always think when you think of Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen, there's always one predominantly that struggles. There's always one that comes under a bit of pressure. There's always, sometimes it's two, but normally there's one, and I don't know why. I have a funny feeling that if Aberdeen had not won the cup last year, which was amazing that they did, I think there'd be less expectation. There's always huge expectation at Aberdeen because they're obviously a big club, but I do think that the way Hibs and Hearts are going, if they don't get anywhere close to them or try and split them and get in amongst that pack, they will come under severe pressure.
They certainly could. Elsewhere, Motherwell edged out Championship leaders St Johnstone, a very hard-fought match in Perth. Cillian, Jens Bertholascu, he's made a decent start to life at Fir Park, hasn't he?
Yeah, really good. Come in, has Motherwell playing nice, attractive football. I was watching the highlights, looked a very close game. St Johnstone had a few chances that near the end probably they could have stolen it. And I think they probably fancied themselves as well, St Johnstone. I know they've had a good start, but it's probably a game, if you were to go back a few seasons ago, you're not going to think St Johnstone and Motherwell are going to be serving up a good kind of entertaining, good style of football, really. No disrespect to the previous teams, but just the two teams have changed their styles. So it's refreshing to see as a kind of a neutral watching them. So yeah, I think it's a good start again for Motherwell. I know he will be pleased with how the team has adapted to how he wants them to play. So the fact he's kind of getting the rewards from it will, I'm sure, give most Motherwell fans plenty of confidence in him.
The other game on Saturday, Ayr United against Partick Thistle. Now, Ayr were on fire in the opening stages of the League Cup. They've struggled since then. They were deservedly beaten by Partick. Kevin, what do you think it will be like in that Ayr United dressing room at the moment?
Listen, I know obviously Scotty really well, so I've got no doubt he'll be hurting. I listen to him a lot after games or kind of pre-match. I like to see what he's saying, obviously. And he does. I think there's no filter with Scotty, really. It is what he is. So, total different personality for Wicks. Probably the reason why they're a good partnership. But they've made a slow start, really, when you think of the results in the Championship. So he'll be hurting, he'll be searching. I know they've got a lot of injuries. But I know he never lives his life to have any excuses. So he'll be demanding, he'll be wanting more. I think when you think of Oakley's, and I know Anton Dowds is not far away, obviously, who's a real handful, who was a real sucker punch for them last year. Obviously, that terrible injury at a bad time, but they have Curtis Mange, George Oakley, and obviously Anton not too far away. I think he'll be hoping that when he gets them on the pitch, they can be a real foil for kind of a catalyst for moving up the table as such. And then you've got obviously Kevin Holt, who I know really well, that's just had a minor operation. He'll be due to come back. So there's no doubt they will get stronger. They've obviously got the affiliation with Celtic as well, so they're mainly trying to get their cream of the crop. But there's no getting away from the disappointment of how poor the result was. And I think the stats were more alarming, that you think your Scott Brown teams normally hustle and bustle and 100 mile per hour and real quality within the side. They really never laid a glove on Partick Thistle, which will be disappointing. I think after that was a Premier League club, all due respect to Partick Thistle, I think that would be different. But to play against a team in your league that have both made kind of slow starts, they probably would have been more confident to be more competitive against them for sure.
And finally, on Friday night, Celtic cruised past Falkirk. They looked more in the groove than in recent league games. But Cillian, should Falkirk fans be a little worried by that performance?
I don't know. I don't think they'll judge their progression on getting beat by Celtic. I think probably the scoreline maybe could have been a bit more. Scott Bain made a few really good saves, especially in the first half. So I don't think Falkirk will have too much to worry from that game. I do think they'll struggle this season. And kind of from I probably shouldn't say it, but from a really selfish point of view, it was nice to see them getting battered after they battered us in the earlier round. So it was a little nice. But no, I don't think
you hold a grudge.
No. But no, I don't think that's not how they'll measure themselves. They're not testing themselves or measuring themselves against Celtic. Even I think John McGlynn after the game came out and was quite honest about it as well. And it's one of those games, if Celtic start to tick a little bit, they can do that to any team. So I think for Falkirk it was probably inevitable that they weren't going to get through, and they'll just probably focus straight away back on the league form.
Absolutely. Well, there's just time for a quick look at the SWPL on the opening weekend of the season. There were big wins for Glasgow City and Hibs, while Partick Thistle edged past Motherwell and Celtic snuck past Hearts. There was also a 6-1 win for Rangers and Leanne Crichton in her first game in charge. She is, of course, one of our best pundits at BBC Scotland, so we'll try not to be too biased. But Kevin, were you surprised that she ended ended up in the hot seat at Ibrox, and how do you think she'll get on?
No, delighted for her. I know Leanne quite well, obviously done plenty of media well, but also done a wee bit of tutoring when she was on her B licence with a few other Scottish internationals way back in the day. So we're certainly both past our sell-by date, but when it comes to coaching terms, I think she'll do great. I went over and finished my pro licence with her group rather than my original group over in Bucharest, and I thought she was very good. And I don't know what the right terminology is, but obviously Leanne in amongst kind of 18, 19 lads and being on the pitch, her authority, the respect that the boys had for her, how she carries herself. I have to say I thought she was different class, and I've actually joined in a few sessions with her when she was obviously on that B licence, so I know that she can play as well. But listen, it's a big job. I've listened to a few of her interviews. She's talking about winning. She's talking about the culture of the club. She knows that, the demands. I think she's done a brilliant job, obviously assisting Paul at Motherwell. Obviously Glasgow City, etc. as well, short-lived. But now she's in the hot seat. She'll feel the pressure because there's an expectation, no doubt. But as you mentioned, brilliant insight when she does her punditry, and I'll be rooting for her. Hopefully she does a brilliant job.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we've got time for. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast every morning. Make sure you don't miss out by subscribing on BBC Sounds, the app we all know and love, and have push notifications turned on your phone. All that's left for me to do is thank Cillian and Kevin for joining me, and thank you for listening. See you again tomorrow.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.